So we'll start with a discussion on research problems, then we'll finish up with some reflections on knowledge translation and ethics and rigor. So here I just want to give a nod. Now typically sometimes we pick one or two slides from somebody else. I've quoted Chris Hort before, whose slides I've used, and Lucy Gilson and Helen Schneider's and Jill Olivier's slides we've used from University of Cape Town. But this presentation, actually I was looking at the presentation which CHEPSA presented, but I just want to acknowledge that this is based almost entirely on this presentation by CHEPSA, Generating and Framing Research Questions. We discussed the 4 key steps in HPSR. So identify the research focus. So that's a problem, concern, opportunity. So this is a different way of saying, that research problem or issue, or what is it that's the driving concern behind the question, which then eventually it's very important to identify that and to figure that out, because then eventually that helps you to frame the question. And then, so moving from the problem to the question is one process, then moving from the question to the design is another process. And then obviously moving from design to implementation is a final process. And when we do implementation, we need to ensure quality and rigor, and we need to make sure that it's ethical. So the key issues we'll discuss today are: what are the kind of starting points for HPSR questions? What are the different kinds of HPSR questions? What makes a good HPSR question? So this will be useful for you in framing your question. There are some set of criteria which you can consider. These are not like hard and fast. They're not, written in stone. But it is, some of the criteria are particularly important. You need to have those in place before you think about a good question. And also how to generate substantively relevant questions. Okay, so this is a mantra. Question drives the study at every stage. Whenever in doubt in what you're doing in your research, research takes 1 year, 2 years, sometimes long periods of time. Some stage you get involved in doing the research, in the actual practice of research, and you forget actually why you were doing it. You get too involved in the procedures and the practices, and this thing that needs to be managed and this thing that needs to be controlled. So at any point that happens, you should look back at the research question. Am I actually serving my research question by doing this thing? If I'm not, then I stop doing it. If I'm not serving it enough, then I institute more procedures, align my study again to make it answer the research question. And of course, you also have research plans, which are basically like an expanded version of the research question. Yeah. So research question is like a tweet, and a research plan is like a blog. But basically, these are the kind of Bibles that you need to follow. And the question, of course, is it can also usually be the title for your study and the title of your papers. Generating questions. Okay. So starting points are the focus or terrain of health policy and health systems. So obviously, the topic should be something that is clearly connected to health policy and systems. And we've discussed previously what are the topics of inquiry: the hardware, the human resources, the finances, the building blocks. That's why it's a very elegant framework, because it gives you clearly limits and clearly circumscribes the kind of areas that you can study. But apart from those kind of hardware elements, the finances, information systems, human resources, medicines and medical products, leadership and governance, and service delivery, there are also a number of software factors that you should consider. The software is like the glue that binds the hardware together. Ideas, interests, relationships, norms, values, power, these are the things that drive that bring in the human element into the health system, and that drive all those hardware factors forward, and the interactions between the hardware and the software. In addition to that, there is a context. All topics are broadly framed within a social and political context, so that is also something to consider. But you can also consider other forms of context, like the ecological context or the cultural context. These are things that are less touched on. And of course, it's also important to remember that systems questions don't only need to be focused at a particular level. You can actually research just one individual, and that is still health systems research. all social orders replicate themselves in individuals. So to understand the social order, you actually just need to study one individual, because they are like a microcosm. There's also Indian philosophy is also follows that. A lot of philosophy comes into research methodology. So whatever the social patterns and norms and structures that there are, they exist within each human being. So if you study that human being adequately, then you can develop an insight and an understanding of the larger social order. And many ethnographers actually would even follow such approaches. Maybe not one individual, or they may even follow one individual through a health system. That could be a very effective, like a kind of a tracking study. But I would just like to add another point, that I think a really crucial aspect of health systems is relationships. So rather than looking at individuals as being sort of atomistic, separated entities which do not have, we must look at relationships between individuals and between groups and between organizations as a key unit of analysis. So we don't only study human behavior, we also study human interaction. So the starting points, you need to consider the focus and terrain. So there is a domain within which the world of health policy and systems is bounded, and you do research on that or on the relationship of those topics with their context. You also consider multiple levels. You can also consider what are the research users' ideas. Yeah. So this is what people were saying about who are research users. People who are involved in utilizing knowledge for change. So the decision makers who bring about some sort of change. And by decision makers, I don't only mean the ministries, but also decision makers at every level, and not just those in government, but also. So who are the consumers of research? Who are the people who are going to use those ideas to bring about change? We need to think about their perspectives. And what past work has been done on the subject, that's very important. And what are the differing disciplinary perspectives? Have different disciplines looked at the same problem in different ways? So these are questions to think about before you start generating your own question. And very important, think about the purpose of the research. So we already touched on this yesterday. What is it that you want to do? And this is again, I'll stress again, when you talk about purpose, it's very individualized. You have to really think about yourself, what makes you happy as a researcher. Is it to ask, to explore, is it to explain, is it to describe, or is it to measure against a standard and to say that, okay, so this is functioning well or this is not functioning well. So that's really linked to your personality, to your individuality. Okay, so let's start with this idea of positioning. So start with the problem, concern, and opportunity, and aim to inform decision making. So this is an overarching set of principles for how you might want to frame your research question. So start with the problem that you want to address, and keep in mind that you want to inform decision making. Yeah, because we are a change oriented field, we want to inform decision making in some way. So these are starting points. So one important starting point is this one. Whose idea? So for the same issue, different actors can pose different questions. And actually it's an important trait of a health policy and systems research, to be able to empathize. Doesn't matter who the person is, doesn't matter how much you disagree with them, but for just putatively, just for the sake of doing good research, you should be able to put yourself in their shoes and think about what are their needs, what are their constraints, and how would they think, how would they approach the problem. And I'd like you to give me examples. So let's move on from the international now and think about, okay, say a service provider. Okay, district manager, service provider. Okay, so say a hospital manager, how would they respond? Block medical officer. This is actually a really important meso level question. Most facility managers are driven by particular objective. Yeah, a facility is an organization. It's a very well-bounded organization. The primary aim of any hospital manager is to make sure the hospital functions well, not to make sure that guidelines are followed, right? So that's called an organizational objective as opposed to a program objective. And this is actually at the heart of many meso level questions around organizational performance. Do you follow a program logic or do you follow an organization logic? Am I making myself clear? So a national program manager who is running a vertical program will want you to follow the program logic. The hospital manager will want you to follow the organizational logic. I'm not saying that it's necessarily the logic that's written in the policies. They may have created some of their own logic, organizational logic. It may be an informal logic, but it is still an organizational logic. There should be an equilibrium within which that organization functions, and their purposes should be met. And that often clashes with the program logic. These are the heart of many vertical horizontal problems. So there you already have a difference in how a national manager may look at it differently and how a hospital manager would look at it differently. Okay. Then after that, what do? You explore what wider knowledge exists. Look at the international experience. Don't exactly copy what has been done, but try and take away again this kind of idea of synthesis. Take away the relevant themes, take away the relevant lessons from other work and apply them in your particular context. It's important that your work should add to the literature, not just duplicate what has already been done. Definitely use theory where it's useful. Theory should be your slave and not your master, because the research question is the master. But theory can be very useful at various times. The most important use of theory is in organizing your research or in interpreting your findings. These are two places where theory is very useful. So one is, suppose you do a very open-ended exploratory study, how am I going to organize all this? Who am I going to interview? How am I going to? So you need theory there to bring in a conceptual framework which will then allow you to organize your study. The other is you come up with a whole range of findings and you don't know how to deal with them. There again, theories become useful because they can help you to organize all those different, suppose you've collected data from different sources or different types of data, then you can organize it all using theory. And you can explain it using theory. Theories can explain your findings. So why do doctors not follow guidelines? There are clear theories which explain that, like such as street level bureaucracy, which we discussed the other day. Street level bureaucracy suggests that the service providers, the people who are interacting with the users, they create their own set of rules and norms. And so that's a way of explaining why people don't actually follow guidelines. Because those guidelines are not logically, they don't fit in with their idea of their street level bureaucracy, their way of organizing themselves. Why do you want to do your study? What do you want to do in your study? So this is an extension of the previous thing. The purpose. Are you somebody who likes to test? Are you somebody who likes to measure? Are you somebody who likes to understand? Or are you somebody who likes to act and change? Yeah. So this is again the purpose. What you want to do may say something about your understanding of knowledge and action. Okay, so this is an important concept. Depending on how you see yourself as a researcher, are you a explorer? Are you a analyst? Are you a explainer? Are you a evaluator? Depending on how you see yourself, that also shapes your understanding of the meaning of knowledge. What is useful knowledge? Because that's your value system, that's inside you. You think evaluation, I want to be an evaluator because I think it's important, no? I believe that evaluation is important. And action should also be based on that knowledge. So the type of approach you take will shape your understanding of how that research should be used and how that research should be created. So this is just a little bit about self-awareness, and these are some of those terms that we've already gone through. It's not really to set up a hard and fast terminology. This is just to make things clearer and more explicit for you as researchers. Nobody is going to, at the end of the day, ask you, whether you are explanatory type or whether you are exploratory type. But normative evaluative research seeks to generate and identify norms, best practices, and gold standard interventions. Exploratory research tries to find out what is happening, especially in poorly understood situations. Descriptive research linked to exploratory is to give an accurate profile of people, events, and situations. Again, descriptive and exploratory are under there's not enough of those types of research, especially because we often work in situations where there is no research absolutely. So you first need to try and do some broad descriptive work to try and understand what's actually going on. You need to do landscaping, you need to do situational analyses, you need to do exploratory work before you actually start talking about explanations or evaluations. These are more in-depth forms of research. So to explain patterns relating to phenomena being researched, to identify relationships between aspects of phenomenon. So explanations means you're trying to find associations between different types of phenomena. So the guidelines issue. Does organizational culture influence people's uptake of research guidelines, of practice guidelines? Yeah. Organizational culture is one phenomenon, uptake of practice guidelines is another phenomenon. This is a good type of research question. We are trying to make an association. And there's a causal thinking over there. Yeah. Explanatory questions can be of different types, but relating two different phenomena often makes for a very good research question. So think about that. Don't just explore one thing, explore its relationship with another thing. And that will help you to focus your questions. Emancipatory, to create opportunities and the will to engage in social action. Okay, so is your purpose really to bring about some change through your research? So even in doing the action research, participatory research, these are all forms of actually combining change making and action. Also implementation research or intervention research. You're actually putting in an intervention and you are researching it at the same time. Okay, so this is how you move from purpose to question. So this sort of broadly forms a family of approaches: the exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory. And these are the sort of words you will use to start your questions. If it's an exploratory question, you will ask a what question. What's actually going on? What new insights can I gain? If you're asking descriptive questions, you might ask also similarly who, what, where, how many, how much. You just want to do a sort of a situation analysis, figure out what's actually going on. It could be quant and qualitative. Explanatory asks why and how. So how does organizational culture impact on adherence to guidelines? Why do doctors not follow guidelines? Action and participatory research is slightly separate from this. It's its own world itself. And normative research again is distinct from this family of. These are the kind of questions you might ask. What is the impact? Is this the best way of doing things? What is the best way of doing things? Is this better than this? Okay, so let's move into some examples. So normative questions. Does intervention X work? Does it work? Which intervention is most effective for a particular problem? Exploratory questions to find out what is happening. What types of information are used in decision making? What are the social processes, including power relations, influencing people's experiences and shaping impact of interventions? This is an example of descriptive. Descriptive are more kind of mundane questions. You might just want to establish what's actually happening. Explanatory questions. Do managers influence facility performance? So that's another twist on the same thing. So it's a relationship between how managers behave and how facilities perform. You're creating a explanatory link. Exploratory questions also identify and explain relationships, assuming complex causality. How and why does management influence facility performance? Okay, so here there's a distinction between assumption of linear causality. So here we assume that managers have a direct influence on facility performance. But here the question is phrased a bit differently. How and why does management influence facility performance? So management is not just done by managers. Management is a phenomenon that takes place. It's a complex phenomenon. And facility performance is a complex phenomenon, and you're trying to identify the link between two complex phenomena. So it's different from this. This is a very difficult type of research to do. I mean, I'm not saying that all of you should jump into doing this kind of research. It's not easy to do, but it's worthwhile thinking about. When and under what circumstances does management influence facility performance? So again, phrased in a different way. So what are the contexts? What are the circumstances? So you see here there are three phenomena: management, performance and the circle, context, circumstances. So now associations between these three different things are being explored. Emancipatory, draws on the experience of practitioners, encourages practice changes. Typically emancipatory, the research questions are not framed as questions. They are, you may also change the question as you move along. So this is just a case study, an example of how you can generate, again, sort of I'm belaboring the point, but how can you generate different types of questions from the same problem, from the same issue. One way to do it is to put yourself in different people's shoes. The other way to do it is to think about what type of researcher are you? Are you asking an explainer? Are you an explainer? Are you an explorer? Are you a strategist? Are you a evaluator? And then this is something that actually happened. So this is a research project we were involved in with NHSRC, started in 2009, in which I think NHSRC and WHO got some, WHO gave PHFI some support, and NHSRC was also involved to do a research. It was a competitive grant on issue of health workforce retention in rural areas. So then we started thinking about how we ask the questions. So okay, so the one of the kind of core first question that comes up is the normative question. So how do we make people stay on? And then if you look down this axis, this leads you to a question, okay, so strategies are there, but they're not working, right? So what is the next automatic inference from that? We try and find out why. Make a diagnostic. Try and find out why most doctors leave. What are the reasons why doctors prefer not to work in villages? And then, we did something creative. We flipped the question on its head. We didn't focus on the doctors who left. We focused on the doctors who stayed on. Why do some doctors stay on? What are the factors that make them stay on? And then let's build those factors or emphasize those factors. So this is just an illustration of how developing a research question can be a creative process, and it's actually your creative tendencies as a researcher can come out in HPSR by just thinking about problems differently. Then of course there is this is lateral thinking. So instead of thinking about doctors, forget doctors, and we think about other health workers. So then, okay, so you think about, can we replace doctors with other workers? Okay, so then what's the first question that pops into your mind? What's the first thing you're going to be attacked on if you implement? Are they good enough? Fantastic. So then you do the evaluation. So just a sense of how you move through problems towards research questions. There has been a traditional focus on the kind of evaluative work and on statistical generalizability. People always ask, what are the lessons? Why do you need to do HPSR? Why don't you just look at what other sectors have done and replicate that? More work is required on exploratory and explanatory questions considering socio-cultural and political understandings of health systems. This is that table which is there in the paper, PLOS Medicine first paper. So again, just examples, these are just examples. And if you read the paper, there are more examples as well. Do read the paper for examples of how you can write a question differently for different levels and for different intentions or purposes of inquiry. So this is your criteria of a good HPSR question. Substantively relevant. It should be worthwhile. It should not be trivial. It should be worthy of the effort and cost to be expended. This is a subjective call, but it's an important one. Who should think it's worthwhile? Who is important specifically? It should be clear. It should be unambiguous, easily understood. Anybody can read it and understand exactly what you're going to do, what you're asking. Yeah, phrasing is very important. It should be specific, not generic. Sufficiently specific to be clear about what constitutes an answer. So there should be an answer. It should be a question that can be answerable. It shouldn't be rhetorical or abstract. And you should genuinely want to know the answer also. Let me add that point. It shouldn't be that you already know the answer and you're asking a question retroactively. Although maybe some people do that also, I don't know. But at least you should be sufficiently, have sufficient integrity to allow that your initial assumptions may not be proven by, or may not be held up by your research. It should be answerable. It should also be, if you have more than one question, they should be interconnected. So if you have two questions, then they should form a whole. So maybe the best way to do it sometimes is to have an overarching question and then to have sub-questions. So that way you can link in your different questions. Or you can just have two questions or three questions which are interconnected, but that interconnection should be apparent. So just to go a little bit more into what makes a good HPSR question substantively relevant. How questions are generated will build on what is known, not duplicate it, and will assist system development in a particular context. So this is again coming to this idea of relevance and substantiveness. It should be worthwhile. People should care about your research. The heart of it, HPSR is oriented towards action and change, and it's other oriented. You should be interested in helping something or making it. But again, I think the individuality of the research is also very important. If you're ahead of your time, for example, if you're researching a question which is not yet, then why should we deny any researcher that opportunity? But I think it's worthwhile for a researcher to think about this as a practice. How is this research going to be of value? Clear, specific, answerable. So this again the point that I made earlier. It's very important to pay attention to the details. Wording is very important. And also describing the scope, the time, place, the people involved. So mention that you are researching a particular time period, or if it's a time bound kind of thing, or mention the setting where you're going to do the research, or mention the people you're going to interview, to the extent that it's reasonable within the question. Generating substantively relevant questions. Talk to people in the system of focus. So this is the kind of work you need to do before. Don't just review the literature, also review existing knowledge which is not there in the literature. Talk to a few informants, people who are experts, who know about the field. These may not be professors or policymakers. They may just be people who know more about that thing, and you know them to know about that particular situation. It may not be research knowledge, it can be practical knowledge. What do they see as important and useful? So again, the importance of empathy, putting yourself in somebody's shoes, thinking about what you might do that makes the work relevant for them. And what do they identify as the gaps in the knowledge? Review the literature. What knowledge has already been generated locally and internationally? So this is just a quick snapshot. I won't go into literature review basics. I'm just going to give you a snapshot. This is some idea of the different types of review that you can do. You can do a narrative review, which is basically a purposive kind of review. You can do quick scoping, rapid evidence assessment, and full systematic reviews. There's a whole debate around the kind of reviews that are relevant in HPSR as well. There's a field called realist synthesis, which follows a different sort of structured approach using realist evaluation principles to do reviews. Critical appraisal. The art of providing a reasonable evaluation of a text by breaking it down and studying its parts. So this is when you do your readings, we expect you to read them critically. And being critical doesn't mean you look at it only negatively. It doesn't mean to criticize in a negative manner, but rather it requires you to question, be skeptical, and to question whether this person has collected the information and the opinions, presented them in a reasonable manner, constructed a credible research methodology. Analysis means to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of the text based on clear criteria and with an understanding of the text purpose, the intended audience, and why it is structured the way it is. Okay, so we're going to stop here.